Hey guys, how's everybody doing this Sunday? I don't know if we're live. I think we are. Let me just make sure that the chat is on here. Let's have a look. It looks like I can see you guys in the chat. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Let me know. Can you give me a thumbs up just to make sure that everything is good? All the volume levels are good. And I'll just can you hear the guitar okay? Just let me know if things are breaking up for you. How's the sound level? Okay, can I have a thumbs up? We'll get the show started. All right, welcome to show number 150. Today we're looking at another Addicted to Gear episode where we're going to be talking about gear. We're going to be talking about gear, guitars, amps, the whole 9 yards. I hope you guys are all doing well. This is show 150. So I hope you guys have been tuning in regularly to most of the shows that have been happening over the last little while, because there have been 150 of them. So we're getting up there. Today I wanted to also mention that there is a poll question. So if you guys haven't already been to the community section, take a look. The community section is where I usually put these polls, and the poll question today was a little question about your favorite pickups, and namely your favorite pickup configuration. I'm playing this HH configured guitar today, and we'll talk about this guitar in a little bit, but I just want to make sure that everybody does get a chance to answer those questions. And we're going to get right into the chat. So I hope everyone is aware. We have to hit the subscribe button to chat, guys. So if you're new and you guys don't know what the system is set up like, if you don't have, if you're not subscribed to the channel, you can't jump in the chat, all right? So please subscribe, chat. Feel free to join in anytime. And let us know what your questions are. I'm going to just go into the chat here and say good morning to everyone. So who do we have here? We have Wayne. We have Randy, Eddie, Cushman, MFN. MF, are you new? I haven't seen you around. MF has a question. He says, "Hi Tony, I have a Blues Junior amp and just got a Blessed Mother overdrive. What settings would you use on the amp / Les Paul standard to maximize the impact of the pedal?" That's an interesting question. So first of all, welcome if you're new, because I don't think I've seen you here before. A Blessed Mother overdrive, I'm not familiar with that, but I'm assuming it's got, you know, the standard overdrive features. What settings would I use on the amp / Les Paul? So usually, if I'm using an overdrive, I like to set the amp to the edge of breakup. Depends on what kind of amp you're using. You don't mention what kind of amp it is. So if it's a Marshall style amp, if it's a Fender Clean, I'm not really sure. But I like to set my amp edge of breakup because I feel there you have the most dynamics. You have the ability to dig a little harder in your picking, and you basically can push it over the edge. Or you can just bring the volume back to like 7 and you can get it to clean up nicely. So I feel like edge of breakup is a nice place to be. And then I would just use the overdrive pedal. And again, I don't know the characteristics of the Blessed Mother overdrive, if it's a really high gain overdrive or just pushes it over like a boost. But I would just use it to give it another maybe 30%, 20%, just to push it over the edge. So keep things relatively articulate without necessarily going too crazy. That's how I generally like to run it. So Cushman, welcome. Presley, welcome. Randy. Who else we have here? Good morning. Good morning. Jack Collins. Good morning. Mark is here as well. Presley Davis. All right, all right. So Profile Production says good 150 show. Screaming Eagle here. Hey Tony, got a new D'Angelico semi-hollow GR8 guitar. Thinking of putting a Vega Trim on it. Any thoughts? I love the Vega Trim products. I'm not just saying that because I reviewed one. I actually have two. I have one in the works also that I'm going to be. I'm considering putting on another guitar. But honestly, they work really, really well. If you like a guitar and you're maybe not liking the way things sound or feel because you don't have the proper tremmy bar, like I like to call it, then definitely invest in a Vega Trim. I don't know if they're the only option. I mean, I'm sure other people are making some really good trims out there, but I can honestly say that I've tried the Vega Trim and it's a great option. It's fantastic. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, thank you, Vox. Thank you. So I didn't want to get into this because I don't want to bring the show down, but I might as well address it and try not to break down into tears. But yeah, it's hard, man. Anyway, for those of you that don't know, we had to put our dog down. Yeah, and it's kills me, man. Kills me. It's one of the hardest things I've had to do, and I don't want to bring the show down. But thank you all for reaching out, and you guys are amazing, man. Because I had posted just some pictures, and yeah, it's not easy, man. Oy. So I want to thank everybody that really sent some touching messages, and I guess you guys are wondering, so I might as well tell you. Basically, what ended up happening is the dog, hadn't been well for a bit. We thought it was something that she maybe would be able to get over with some medications and such, but we took her to the vet. The last couple of weeks were kind of stressful because what ended up happening was she had these attacks. I think I mentioned it on one of the shows where basically it was almost like what we thought was like an asthma attack or something like that, but it ended up being worse because it's what they call, I don't know if they call it geriatric onset laryngeal paralysis, which basically means your larynx, what basically opens and closes to make you breathe and make sure the food that you're eating doesn't go into your lungs, was becoming paralyzed. And what ends up happening in older dogs, it happens apparently in many dogs, the situation could be mild or it could get worse really quickly. And Maya was 13 years old, so at that age you don't really want to do surgery on the dog, and because then what ends up happening is you have other issues that pop up. You end up getting, they have to open it up, and what they do is they just sew it back so that you have some ability to have air come in. But because of that, then they end up getting food and stuff in their lungs, and they end up getting pneumonia, and they get all kinds of other stuff. So not exactly the best option. We tried the steroids, and but what ended up happening a couple of days ago is that she had another attack, and I honestly thought that she had passed away right there in our kitchen floor, because she had physically stopped breathing for a while. She was gasping for air, and it's the most stressful thing, because you don't know you can't do anything. You can just watch them sort of gasp for breath, and it was like terrible. And at one point, my kids were there too. It was the most terrible thing to watch. But then it ended up like she stopped breathing completely for quite a while, and I thought she was gone. I honestly did. And then she slowly came back. And the crazy thing is, after these things happen, you give it a couple of hours, she's back to normal. you know. And basically, that's why the decision to put her down was so hard, because when it's not happening, she seemed her usual self. So it's really, really hard to take that decision. But we had to like put our feelings aside and do what's best for her, because we didn't want to see her suffer. So we did it. We did it last Friday. Yeah, for those of you who don't have dogs, maybe you don't know, but it's crazy how those critters just steal your heart, man. Anyways, let's not dwell on it. Let's try and focus on the positive. She had a very good life. She gave us 13 years of nothing but great times, affection and love, and amazing dog. And yeah, that's that. All right, let's jump on some questions, can we? I think there was a question up above here. All right, Johnny Franklin Torres. He says, I got a question, Tony. I'm saving some money to purchase a multi-effects pedal board. I want to know, which one do you recommend? The NUX MG30 or the Valaton GP200? Thanks for your answer. Johnny, first of all, thanks for your question. I think those are both really good choices. I don't think you could go wrong with any of them. For home use, both of those would be great. I'm actually playing through the Valaton GP200 LT right now, and I think it sounds great. I really do. I think it's a nice, versatile little unit, not very expensive, and it really does sound great. So it really comes down to functions and features. If you like the features that you get on the MG30, go with that. You'll be fine. If you decide that you like the features of the Valaton, go with that. You'll be fine. I don't want to try and be sort of, give you a non-answer, but honestly, both of them are great. I would honestly be happy with both of them. And if it comes down to money, you can compare the pricing on both of those units. I think they both have similar features. I'm just thinking here, the MG30, what's the advantage over the MG30? Let me just do something here. I just want to... Sorry, guys, I didn't mean to bring the show down like that. But like I said, if you guys have been through it, you know. If you don't, well, I'm happy that you don't, in a way. Okay, so the MG30, the other thing I want to bring up with the MG30 is that you do have the built-in power, the built-in effects pedal, whereas the Valaton doesn't have that. But the Valaton, you do have 4 switches. The MG30, you have 3 switches. So it's give and take. You can always add an expression pedal to the Valaton, and you get it into the same ballpark. They all have the same functions, and they all have the looper built in and all that kind of stuff. So I believe the price on the MG30 is about $414 right now, where the Valaton is how much? I'm not up to speed on the pricing now, so I'm just gonna check it out for you guys just to compare. If anybody's got the price on the Valaton, let me know while I quickly take a look here and just see if I can find it for you guys. And, oh man. Where's the Valaton price? How come I can't find it? GP100, I see that one. How come I don't see the GP200? Let me just see here. Sorry. GP200. They have the bigger one. That's weird. Maybe, is it out of stock? I wouldn't be surprised. I can't find the price. Paul said it's $280. There we go, $280. So basically, it's a little less expensive. You know what I mean? So if it comes down to price, I would go with the Valaton if you want to save money, man. It's not a bad deal at all. All right, so let me. I'm scrolling up and down, guys, so that you guys could have a chance to ask your questions. Um, Thank you, Paul. Thank you for the Paul posted the price on that 280. Thank you. Presley says I'm doing a HH Telecaster and thinking of adding a mini toggle switch to switch the humbuckers to single coil in one position and to add a phase single coil quacky in the other position. Thoughts? So Presley, I know there's a lot of people that like that kind of stuff. So I think having the most flexibility in your tones for your guitar is definitely something that a lot of people will appreciate. I feel like splitting the coils on a humbucker, to me, I don't usually use it, but I know some people do like it, and it's nice to have the option for that. There are times when you will definitely like to have more of a thinner sound as opposed to a beefier sound, and it could come in very handy, and I'll explain why in a second. But so I think it's a good idea. The out of phase position, honestly, I never use that. I think I had one guitar, I think, that had the out of phase function on it, and I didn't really use it all that much, so I wouldn't go out of my way to use that. But by all means, if you can put in more tones into a guitar, I don't think that's a bad thing. I honestly don't. Jack says, sorry to hear about your dog. I had to bury my dog last week. Oh man, Jack. My wife went and got me another one this week to try and get me out of my depression mode. Yeah. I don't know what to say, Jack. Yeah, I feel you, man. I feel you. Like, honestly, at this point, I'm not even thinking about another dog because it's like, you know, it's a big responsibility. It's another 10 to 15 years, hopefully. And, man, they just like, at the end, they just tear your heart out, you know? So, sorry to hear that, Jack. I totally feel you, man. Totally. All right, let's look at some other questions here. Tony, is the Super Bowl a big deal in Canada? Yeah, it is. A lot of people go crazy about the Super Bowl. I have friends that are totally whacked out on the Super Bowl. They do the whole Super Bowl party thing. Don't bother them during the Super Bowl. It's one of those big events. I'm pretty sure it's bigger in the States. I think it definitely is bigger in the States. But you have some, hardcore football fans here in Canada as well. I'm not a huge football fan, unfortunately. I like watching football from time to time, and I enjoy participating in the Super Bowl festivities, but I don't go out of my way to watch all the games. So I'm like that, man. Even hockey, like, a lot of Canadians are like, hey, man, you must be Canadian, you must love hockey. I like hockey, but I'm not hardcore like some of my friends are. Don't miss any of the games. All right. Hey, Landon, how's it going, buddy? Nice to see you here. Landon says, so sorry to hear our yellow Bella was 15. So I know exactly how you feel. Dude, did she pass away recently? Yeah, sorry to hear that, man. Yeah, when they get up there, it gets stressful. Yeah. Any other questions? Guys, let's turn this into a guitar gear focused focused show. I'm just scrolling, guys. I'm looking for those questions. Here we go. Jeff has a question, and Charles has a comment as well. So I'll get to that in a second. Jeff says, I've just bought my first Floyd Rose equipped guitar. Congratulations, Jeff. A used ESP LTD F100. Paid 82 pounds for it. A couple of redundant pedals. Any setup tips to go down a string gauge to go down a string. Okay, so you're, yeah, great question. Great question, Jeff. Okay, here we go. Floyd on this one too. I'll get to this guitar in a second. So there are quite a few things you can do if you own a Floyd Rose equipped guitar. First of all, not all Floyd Rose systems are made the same. They have OEM brands, which are basically, they look like a Floyd, but they're made by other companies. Generally, those are the cheapest type of Floyd Rose bridge. They have the ones that are actually licensed by Floyd Rose, which are a little bit better because they have to be in spec. And then they have the real German Floyd Rose systems that are the most expensive and the better quality ones, the original ones with the good metals and everything. So they don't all work the same way. If you have an OEM version, an upgrade would be the first thing I would suggest, because those things never work really well. They don't really stay in tune. The reason for that is that they seem to use cheap pot metal most of the time, so they're not the best. So I'm hoping you don't have that one on your guitar. You're not specifying which Floyd Rose you actually have on your guitar. But there's a couple of things you can do when you set up your guitar. First of all, you don't necessarily have to go down a string gauge or anything like that. You can use whatever string gauge you like. But it's important to set it up so that it is floating properly. And to be able to do that, you have to make sure that everything is in sync and that your bridge is not tilted down or up. It's totally level. And you want to spend the proper time to be able to balance it all out, especially if you're putting in new strings. Here's the thing with Floyds. If you gotta change strings, it's a pain. It takes a long time to get those strings to float properly when they're new, because you have to stretch them out. And at first, everything is in balance, but slowly, with new strings, they tend to get a little bit out of whack. So you have to kind of readjust after you actually install the strings to make sure everything does stay in balance and float properly. And you also have to pay attention to the intonation. These are a little bit tricky to intonate because you do have to move the little saddles. They sell a little tool that you can use for that. It's about 14 bucks. It's a good investment because it makes the whole process easier when you're doing that. And typically you want to make sure everything is locked down really, really snugly. Here and here, you want to make sure once it is in tune and floating that you lock it down. And I always feel like if you have an inferior Floyd, the little blocks of metal that are inside the saddles there, if you don't want to change the entire Floyd, you do yourself a favor and get better blocks that are made of good quality metal that are not going to bend, so that when you snug it down, they don't they don't create a little bend in the metal and things slide out. That's when you get intonation issues. Not intonation issues, but tuning issues. You want to make sure these are cranked down nice and tight. And you want to make sure that the saddle here doesn't move. A lot of times, what I've noticed on some guitars, when you actually do this, and you keep your eye on the little metal piece, sometimes it moves. Depending on what kind of screws they put in there, that's what causes some tuning issues sometimes. So there's quite a few things you can do with the Floyd. If you make sure that you follow all of the steps, generally you end up having an easier time with them. And I probably forgot a few things. I'm just going through the high level things that I could think of. But maybe one day what I'll do is I'll actually record a full Floyd setup. I think a lot of people, it could benefit a lot of people. All right, so I'm just jumping around here. Ben says, considering there's so many knockoff Floyd Rose bridges, I'm curious to know which ones are on the EVH Stripe Series guitar. Would anyone be able to tell me? Good question. There must be a spec somewhere. Can anyone dig that up while we're talking so I don't have to get distracted and look it up? I could probably try and find it on my own. Let me see. Let me see if I can get lucky. All right, so here there's, okay, so they have the EVH 5150 series guitar. I don't know if you're talking about the Frankenstrat or the 5150. I'm thinking it's a Floyd 1000. I don't know if they're going to specify. Let me just see here. So yeah, so basically they say an EVH branded Floyd Rose locking tremolo with EVH detuna. They don't tell you what it is. So I don't really know unless somebody can dig it up. But I'm assuming it's at least, I hope it's at least the 1000. By the way, this is the 1000 on this guitar here. All right, which works pretty well. There are better ones though, but it all comes down to cash. Mark says, I may be in the market for an acoustic upgrade since I'm going to start doing solo acoustic gigs, looking for a Martin/Taylor. Play a PRS now, which would stay as a backup. So Mark, first of all, why do you want to swap out your PRS as a backup? You think it's not giving you the sound that you're looking for? I've owned a Taylor in the past. I've owned, and I still do own a Martin. I like the Martins better than the Taylors. The reason for that, and this is personal, the reason for that is I find the Martin has a more punchy, little bit of a brighter top end to it. The Taylors are nice. Their sound is a little bit more balanced throughout the sound spectrum. To me, like I always refer to a Taylor like a Cadillac. You know, it's like, it's a little bit, all the sound is nice, but it's kind of, how can I put this? It's not maybe as dynamic as a Martin, I feel. It's a little bit more like mellow and a little bit more, it sounds good and balanced. But I find that for me, the Martins are just, they give you that nice spicy top end that I like a lot. You gotta, Mark, my advice to you, man, is just buy with your ears, man. Go into a place that has a nice selection of acoustic guitars that it might not even be it might not end up being a Martin or a Taylor. Believe it or not, some of the Eastman acoustics are really good. They sound really, really good. And for the money you're spending, you would probably have to spend 3 times that amount to get the same sound on some other brands. So I would say go to a store that has a lot of selection and just play a whole bunch of them and see which one speaks to you. The sound difference sometimes is very subtle. Yeah, the Taylors tend to live in the mids, a little bit more in the mids. It's like the top is subdued, the bottom is it's just a different sound. You like the way I brought Cadillac into that description? I'm just trying to make you understand in my own crazy way how I feel. It's like, when you drive a Cadillac, it's like all the bumps kind of are softened. They're like, you don't really feel, there's a big difference between a Cadillac and let's say a BMW in terms of the suspension, right? The BMW, you can really feel the road. You can, you feel every little bump. Whereas the Cadillac, it kind of takes the edge off of it. So it's kind of like, it's comfortable. It's not bad, but it's just like, same kind of idea for me with the Taylors. Cool Tune says, Tony, regarding the Edwards Gold Top P90, when playing sitting, no strap seems to want to fall back heavier at the tail where the switch is. You notice anything like that? No, I didn't. I don't have it here. You're saying it's bottom heavy? It tends to do this? Interesting, okay. I don't feel, the feel to me is very much like my other Les Pauls. So, is it your first Les Paul, or do you have others? I'm just wondering if it's just like you're not as familiar with the feel of a Les Paul because you're a Strat guy maybe, and Strats are a lot more balanced than Les Pauls. They are easy to play. Yeah, Mark, they are easy to play. That's the thing about Taylors. They're very comfortable. They're very comfortable guitars. Yeah. Fat Philosopher says, I hated Floyd Roses for 2 months, but once you figure what's going on, they're cool. Yeah, you got to really understand how they work. And there's a little bit more nuances. It's like, it's like a sports car. You need to take care of it a little more for it to perform the way you want. Presley says the Martin neck reset is 900, Taylor is 150. Yeah, because the Taylors are easier to work with, right? The way the necks are put on a Taylor, they're easy to remove. And they can easily, I think there's just a bolt on the inside that they can loosen and take the neck off. So if you have to do a neck reset, hopefully you don't, it'll be less expensive for sure. Yes. And some people, I don't usually buy an acoustic thinking that I'm going to have to do a neck reset. I hope I don't. And so far, the Martin that I have has been flawless, been working really well. And I don't play it nearly enough, unfortunately. David says, Tony, expensive high-end cables or less expensive? Differences in your opinion? There are differences, Davis. It all depends on your setup. Because honestly, some people will not hear the difference depending on what you're playing through, what your rig is, how many pedals. But I can honestly tell you, and you can try the experiment, especially if you have longer cables. One of the things I want to say is let me put it this way. First of all, there's very expensive cables that you guys probably know, a few brands like this that I'm referring to, that you can spend a lot of money on a cable, and you can get the regular $15 cables. And a lot of people don't really understand the difference, and they're like, whatever, I'm going to go for the cheap one. A cable's a cable. And in most cases, that could be the case. But if you're playing your guitar and you're going through a bunch of pedals, first thing I'm going to say is, if you buy a cable and it's like longer than 10 feet, you're already losing some of the high end on it. So whether or not you buy an expensive cable or a cheap cable, if you buy a long, expensive cable, you're still going to lose some of the top end. So you're probably better off with going a cheaper, inexpensive cable that's shorter, So it's give and take. But I've done the experiment where I've played through my guitar, going through a cable, going through my pedals, and another cable, going from my pedals to my amp. And so the cables were relatively long, okay? And I listened to the sound and I played. Then I took the cable and I went directly into the amp, bypassed all the pedals and the other cable. Huge difference in the top end. Got more expensive cables, did the same thing. You can definitely hear the difference. Whether or not it's worth the extra money to you, again, when you're playing in a situation and the drummer kicks in, are you going to hear the difference? Probably not. Maybe if you're doing a recording and you're at home and you want to get the best fidelity you can, then yeah, invest in the higher end cables. But at the end of the day, it really depends on the rest of your rig. It's not just the cable, I don't think the cable is going to make a humongous difference, but there is a difference. You can hear it. Who's with me on that? I don't know if I'm the only one who's geeky enough to pay attention to these kind of things, but I can definitely tell you that there is a difference. Cletus says, there was a late 70s Guild acoustic for sale at my local guitar center. Played and sounded amazing. I went back a few days later to get it and it was already gone. That is always the nightmare scenario. Cletus, I feel for you, buddy. I know what it feels like when you have your heart set on it. But I'm going to put it to you this way. If it's gone for a reason. I honestly feel like if you have an opportunity to snag a great guitar, if it's meant to be, it will be. Like, it's happened to me many times that I've eyeballed a guitar and I'm like, it's a really nice guitar. I'm not sure if I should buy it. Let me think about it, and it's gone, right? Immediately. And I'm like, okay, well, it's gone. It means it wasn't meant to be at this time. And then there's some guitars that just like, they're there and you're looking at them and like, that's a sweet guitar, and I would really like to have that guitar. And then you go back a few days later and it's still there. And then maybe a week later, it's still there. and you're like, well, like normally that guitar would have been gone, and then you snag it up, and it's just meant to be. It's there. Somebody didn't grab it. It's meant to be. So don't sweat it, man. If you don't if you didn't get that guild, maybe you'll get another one. Maybe you'll get a better one. I like to think of it that way. Alan says joined late. It's okay, Alan. Glad you joined late. You just missed me sobbing at the beginning of the show, so nothing. You didn't miss anything big at the beginning. I was just talking about my dog. But cables lose signal if they're too long. Yes, and you can help that by using a buffer. If you have a buffered, like I have a buffered tuner pedal in my pedal board, which definitely helps with the loss of the signal. So that's one way you can do it. Rico says, have you watched any of the new live John 5 Motley Crue? He sounded great. Yes, Rico. Yes. I gotta say, man, I gotta hand it to John 5. First of all, my opinion, he fits into that mix so well. He definitely elevates the band, I think. Plays amazing like always. Definitely has the mojo, in terms of fitting into Motley Crue. He doesn't look out of place at all, and he can rock it, man. So I'm actually a big applaud, from my perspective for John. I love John. I think he's an amazing player. I think a lot of people maybe just if he didn't have his persona, the look, maybe a lot of older players would probably appreciate the guy more because he can definitely play. And it's not just metal. He can play everything. So yeah, I think he's doing a fabulous job. And I'm itching to see more. So guys, there's 61 people eyeballing me here today. There's 24, I'm getting dyslexic. 24 thumbs up. Please give me some thumbs up. I would appreciate getting more support on the video so that we can get more eyeballs. But I'm glad to see at least 60 people here, which is fantastic. And a lot of you out there are not asking questions because I see some familiar faces asking questions, but nobody new. I'm going to say it again. If you're watching and you're not subscribed to the channel, you cannot chat. So if you're out there and you're new and you're watching and you're wondering why you can't chat, just subscribe, do it right now, and you'll be able to chat in a couple of seconds and join in on the fun, because that's the whole part of it, the whole thing, right? Jerry says, John 5 back in the day took guitar lessons at a store right by me. Really? Jerry, where was this? Cool. Thank you, Alan. I appreciate the support for everybody that's giving the thumbs up. Thank you, guys. You guys rock. And he's playing, is he playing his Telecasters? I think he is. He did a very quick rig rundown where he showed some of the guitars that he was playing for Motley Crue. There were a few Telecasters in the lineup, yes. He's got some really nice guitars. Cletus says, good advice, Tony. I was gonna Tanya Harding the guy in the parking lot and take the guild, but your way of dealing with it is better. I like the way you put that. Tanya Harding. I forgot about Tanya. Yeah. Sometimes you do feel like doing that, though. I totally understand, Cletus. Tanya Harding. That only happened to me once, where I felt like Tanya Harding someone. I was going to pick up, I was interested in buying a Vox amplifier, a combo. First Vox that I was looking at getting, this guy had an amazing deal on it. The price was extremely low. He was just wanting to get rid of it quickly. And that was one of those things where, I saw the deal and I contacted the guy and I'm like, is it still available? And he's like, yes. I'm on my way. And he's like, listen, somebody else is interested. Whoever shows up first gets it, So I'm like, I'm on my way. Jump in the car, start the engine. Jumped in the car, went with my son, had a hard time finding parking because it was closer to the downtown core. Jumped out of my car, told my son to stay in the car. I double parked somewhere, ran to his apartment, rang the door, comes out on his balcony, and he's like, "Sorry, dude, because I just sold it." And then I see the guy coming out of the door carrying, the amp with a big smile on his face. And I'm like, ugh. That's when I felt like Tanya Harding him too. But like I said, I'm like, it wasn't meant to be at that time. And that was quite a few years ago. And I still haven't purchased a Vox guitars, a Vox combo amp. So I guess it tells you, everything happens for a reason. I did not know that, Fat Philosopher. John 5 got his start playing for K.D. Lang, so he knows his country music. Really, I had no clue. That's interesting to note. Very cool. So Paul says, Tony, the signal of a guitar is so small. The copper strands and a cheap cable are more than enough. The thing is shielding. The average priced brand name has adequate is perfect. Yeah, and there's also other things. I mean, the type of connectors, the way the thing is soldered and put together, like if you open it up and take a look, makes a difference. You can hear sometimes the difference when you take a cable that's cheap and you plug it into your amp. Just try this at home, guys, and tell me if you can't hear this. Take your plug it into your guitar, plug it into your amplifier, turn up the volume on the amplifier, and just take the cable and shake it on the floor like this. Make it hit the floor, make it bounce on the floor. You're gonna hear the sound coming out of your amp with the cheaper cables. With better cables, you don't hear that. And I don't know if that's the shielding, the cable, the core. I don't know exactly, but you definitely hear that. And a lot of better quality cables, they're made in such a way where they're a little bit more pliable. Believe it or not, this cable, I'll just unplug it quickly. This cable here is an old Whirlwind cable. I don't know if you remember these, but this cable, honestly, is probably about, at this point, getting close to 40 years old. It's like at least 30, between 30, 35 years old. I bought this cable. It's probably one of the first cables I ever bought. And Whirlwind at the time was a little bit more expensive, not that much. I'm still using them. Never had an issue, never broke on me. Are they the best cables? No. But I definitely got my money's worth out of these Whirlwind cables. So for me, it was a good investment. Cooltoon said, I had the AD series Vox combo. Wasn't so good. Didn't keep it very long. Was hybrid. Yeah. I was looking at the Vox AC, the AC 30s, or they even had the 15s and stuff like that. So, Fat Philosopher says, is there a best season to self-paint a guitar? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily, depending on where you're living, of course, knowing that you're in Japan. I don't know what the climate is in Japan. I would assume it's pretty humid at times. I would say the best time, I tend to, look, it's not a question of time, it's a question of temperature. So you don't necessarily want to do this. You can do it in the summertime, but it doesn't have to be extremely hot or extremely cold. You want to try and keep the, I think under, you don't want to go under 16 degrees in terms of cold. You try and stay above 16. So like a heated garage would be fine to be painting in. Humidity obviously will make the paint dry slower. Excessive heat and dryness will make it dry quicker. It's really a question of the flow of the paint in the can. You can do things if it's a little bit too cold. You can take the can, you can warm up some water, not super hot, but warm enough to put it in. You just put it into the you put the can into the warm water. Let the temperature of the paint get a little warmer so it flows a little nicer when you're spraying it. Definitely, I mean, the winter is better in a sense where you don't have flies and stuff flying around and getting stuck in your paint. At least not here in Canada, because there's no flies in the wintertime. No flying insects around for that, but it can get quite dry. All right. Dan of New Jersey says, I have a cable, no name from what I can tell, from 1985, still use it every day and totally solid. Generally, if you take care of your cables, they last a long time. The thing that I've seen many times, many times, is that people don't wrap the cables properly. You know, they kind of like wrap them in like figure eights and stuff like that instead of just keeping them, wrap them around, don't twist them up. That's where they get damaged. That's where they get wrecked. Deja Voodoo says, I keep getting beaten to the great deals by a flipper in my town. Getting beaten is one thing, going to the gear listing and seeing the same gear parted out and 2-3 times the price is the sad part. Yeah, I see what you mean, man. So this guy's getting to them quicker and then parting them out. That sucks. But what can you do? I mean, you got to be quicker on the trigger, I guess. Lempu says, wish me luck, man. I'm trying to create a GCM 800 1-to-1. Just got my first 600V shock. Okay. so Lampu, be careful, man. You can kill yourself if you don't know what you're doing with amps. Those capacitors hold a charge, dude. Be careful. If you're poking around in there, make sure you're doing that with something made of wood, nothing made of metal. Keep one hand in your pocket at all times, and just be super careful. That's one of the things that has stopped me from ever trying to build one of my own amps. Number one, I don't know anything about electronics. I'm not an electronics guru or geek or anything like that. I don't really understand it. And I'm scared to actually poke around in there thinking like I'm gonna kill myself. So yeah, if you know what you're doing, it's easy. It's not that difficult. Make sure you drain the caps. There's ways of doing that before you work and poke around in there. But just be careful, man. Paul says, Tony, the Whirlwind is a good choice. Yorkville are a bargain, and you get a free exchange. If you ever have a problem, they can do that, as they almost never have issues. Yeah, and I think there's a few other brands that offer like lifetime guarantees and stuff like that on their cables. They're a little bit more expensive, but Presley, California Customs told my wife she needs to learn to embrace her mistakes. She gave me a hug. That's a good one, man. That sounds like something that one of those one-liners that you would hear Rodney Dangerfield say in his stand-up. It's not easy, man. It's not easy. No respect. EF says, is wiring 2 humbuckers in series useful or stupid? Let's leave that to the pros here. I'm gonna defer that question over to the people in the audience. Guys, what do you think? Is wiring 2 humbuckers in series useful or stupid? Nothing stupid, by the way. That's a good tip, Steve. Get a ground bracelet. Would that work? Would that be safe enough? I'm not really sure. Fat Philosopher says, Tony, will have to take one of those amp build courses that Phil McKnight went on. That would be fun. Like if ever they would offer that somewhere in my area, I'd be interested. but they don't. It's very hard to find, and I'm not gonna fly somewhere to take an amp build course. But I can see where a lot of people would love to do that. Cletus says draining the caps is easy. Just hold on to the fence post and get in there with a screwdriver. Yeah. Yeah. We're just kidding. Don't do that. That's funny. That makes me think of a joke, but it's a dirty joke. I can't tell you guys. At least not here. Eddie says the Farmer's Almanac says it's best to paint a guitar during the summer equinox. Full moon, I guess. That would be the best thing. All right, so while you guys are thinking of some other questions, I'm going to just mosey on over to the poll question and see what kind of results we have today. Because I just want to see if you guys actually got an opportunity to answer. And a lot of you have remarked that the option for HH configuration was missing. And I did that on purpose, guys, because I think a lot of us own at least one HH configured guitar, humbucker, because it's very common. And I know I had a feeling a lot of you guys would probably mention that it was left off. And I'm thinking a lot of you guys probably have at least one of those and one SSH configuration or SSS configuration. So I'm taking it for granted that most of you probably do have one, and I put in some of the other configurations, just a little bit more oddball. So let's look at that and let's see what the answers are. And if you guys haven't responded, you can answer here. I'll tell you what the question was. The question was, what pickup configuration do you prefer in your electric guitars? And the option was SSS, which is basically a Strat, 3 single coils. HSH, so humbucker in the neck, single coil humbucker. SSH, which is single humbucker. SS, which is kind of a little bit more rare on a Strat style guitar, but common for if you're a Telecaster guy, where it's single in the neck, single in the bridge. And then single humbucker in the bridge a la Eddie, right? So Eddie Van Halen had the whole thing where he had just one humbucker in his guitar in the bridge position. So I left off HH, and I had probably about we got 150 votes on the poll, and at least 18 of you mentioned the fact that that the two HH is missing. And then there's a few people that have mentioned HSS is missing, but humbucker single. Yeah, I don't know. I'm that's an option too, obviously, but I don't really see that many guitars with that configuration. So Fluke X says, even though I've answered, this is a tough question. It does depend on what I want out of the guitar in that moment. I like SSH in a Strat style. Then again, I play HH in a Les Paul style. Then I do love what a P90 can bring to the table. Tough question. It's hard. It is hard, but when you have a lot of choice, a lot of guitars, it's nice to have one of each. Skeeter Bodine says, what happened to just HH? ? TBH, the middle position is in the way. I agree with the middle position situation. When you have a HH with a single coil, it doesn't leave you a lot of room to pick. And for me, the single coil gets in the way. All right. So a lot of you mentioned the HH configuration. I get it. I have a feeling if HH was on the list, it probably would be number one. All right. So I'll tell you what the results are. So basically, let's start with SSS. SSS was 30%. A lot of people like the SSS configuration. The HSH configuration was only 16%. So I guess a lot of people feel like I feel about that. Then the SSH configuration was 30%, so it matches the SS configuration. I'm not a huge fan of the SSH configuration. I always feel that it's hard to get a good balance between the humbucker and the two single coils. I feel like the humbucker sounds good when you're playing it alone. When you jump to the singles, it kind of takes a drop, and you're looking at different caps in there. Like you want a 500 for the humbucker, then you want 250 for the single coil. So you have to kind of work it out so that it's 500 when you jump to the humbucker and 250 when you jump to the single coils. So it's a little bit more, just a little bit more tweaky kind of. My Sir had that configuration, and I swapped it to a humbucker configuration. I just got fed up of trying to make the pickups match. So that's interesting. Then we have the SS configuration, only 8%, and I understand that. Unless you're playing a Telecaster, maybe there's not that many Telecaster lovers out there, I'm not sure, but only 8%. I would have thought it would be a little bit higher than that. And then the single humbucker in the bridge, you're looking at 15%. So there's not a, I mean, the HSH and the single humbucker are very close, 15%, tied between SSS and SSH, which is interesting. And the last in the pack is SS. Interesting. So I'm very very happy that you guys did answer the poll. It's kind of eye-opening for me. But I do think that a lot of people would have probably jumped in with a HH configuration. Let's just see. Some of you are mentioning HH for me, says Mark. SS config Telecaster baby, says Charles. Rico likes the HSS. Very cool. Cletus says I only have HH and SS, an arsenal of Les Pauls, and then Electro 59s. Dan of New Jersey loves the Strat. He's old school. Alan says for me, HSH, my pick always hits the middle pickup, so I don't really do well with those. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, I do the same. You can always lower the middle position pickup if you want and get it out of the way, but then what's the point getting it in there anyways, right? Rico says P90 guys. The P90 guys are mad. Maybe. But P90s to me qualify as SS because single, you know. So Alan says, I thought you named it starting from the bridge, so HSS instead of SSH. No, I usually start from the neck, so SSH is what I meant. Cool. Thank you for that, guys. I appreciate that. Let me talk about this guitar. I might as well. I didn't talk about it at all. This is a brand new guitar. Just arrived this week. I actually played it live last Sunday. Love it. This is a Harley Benton, man. Harley Benton Fusion 3 with a Floyd on it, humbucker. Beautiful guitar. I actually already filmed the review on this guitar. And I'm going to be putting it out this week, probably tomorrow or something like that, or Tuesday, not really sure. I wanted to do it earlier, but, things happened. Very sweet looking guitar, man. Love it. Has the split coil, 3-way switch, double humbuckers, 1000 series Floyd, beautiful neck. Check this roasted maple neck, man. It's beautiful. Look at this thing. So I'm going to be giving you the full review. I wanted to give you guys the preview today because we're here and you already heard what it... So when I played it on Sunday, The idea was to see how it sounded in a live scenario and to see how well it stayed in tune, and definitely sounded very good in a live scenario. Stayed in tune really, really well. Way better than some of my past Floyd's guitars with Floyd's on them. Felt really nice, man, and I really enjoyed it. So I wanted to give you guys a little preview if you guys are looking for a really sweet guitar that is not that expensive and definitely scratches my itch for some of the more expensive models that have the same configuration, namely Charvel, Ibanez, some of the Sir guitars. I mean, definitely not in the same price point. But as far as feel, playability, I was blown away. They also have stainless steel frets, by the way, guys. So there's not a lot lacking on this guitar. But watch the review when I post it. You'll get the sound samples and you'll be able to see all of the details. And I think you're going to enjoy it. That should be coming out, like I said, in about a day or so. Jedi Jingle Maker says, real quick, rate the neck 1 to 10. This neck, if you're talking about this neck, I love it. There's nothing that I'm like, I honestly wouldn't feel like the neck is lacking anything. It's a C-shaped neck, 12-inch radius, stainless steel frets, Canadian roasted maple, hard rock maple, nice and dark. I mean, honestly, the feel of the neck, I'm giving it a 10. There's nothing missing on this neck. It plays wonderfully well, 24 frets. What else can I ask for? Nothing wrong with any of the fret sprout, nice round over. Yeah. Jedi Jingle Maker says, I'm wiggle stick adverse at this point. To be honest with you guys, I didn't really want to get another guitar with a Floyd because I've always had issues. I've had a Charvel in the past with a Floyd, a couple other guitars that had Floyds in it. The only guitar that I have with a Floyd in it at the moment is the, where is it? This guy here, the Strat, and that is an original German-made Floyd, which was most generously donated to me by one of the members here, and it's amazing. But in the past, the Floyds that I've tried on other guitars, they were always other types, either OEM or lesser quality models, and I've always had issues with them. So I'm like, do I really want to get another guitar with a Floyd in it? But it's nice. It is nice to have at least one. But this one, so far so good, man. Who knows what's going to happen when I change the strings, because it's always, like we were saying earlier, they're a little bit more finicky. But so far, I love them. I scrolled all the way to the end, guys, so I'm gonna just answer your question in reverse order again, because I always feel like I'm falling behind. How many guitars do you have now? That's one of the questions. Good question. As a matter of fact, I did an exercise this week because I talked to you last week about it would be interesting to find out which guitar I have that is the lightest and which guitar is the heaviest. So I actually started taking inventory. And here's the list. Okay, I'm not going to give you the results for the weights. I'm just going to show you. So these are the electric guitars that I have on the list so far. So right now we're at 50 electric guitars, and I'm not finished, but I think I'm not going to include the acoustics and basses and stuff like that. So about 50 guitars is how many I own so far. And I put on all the weights. They're all in here. All the weights. I have this tool that I use, which is just like one of these weight. It has a strap. You can basically take it. You can put it around the guitar neck and hold the guitar up, and it tells you the weight on this thing. And I never did that before, and it was actually quite eye-opening. At the end of the day, I don't want to give it away now. I think I'm going to record I'm going to record a video on one of the lightest and heaviest guitars. But just at a glance, I'm going to say you'll be surprised at how light the lightest guitar that I have is. Honestly, I was surprised actually. And I don't want to give it away, but it's you probably wouldn't even guess how light it is. The heaviest here, they're all about in the same range. There's a lot of 7-pounders. There's a lot of there's a few 8-pounders. There's some that are 9. Not many go over 9. So 9 is the heaviest. Nine-ish is the heaviest. Will you be surprised at which one it is? Let's see here. I think you may be. And it's funny because the one, some of them that are heavy don't feel that heavy to me. Like some guitars that are actually lighter feel heavier, and they're not. So it's the placebo effect. But if you had to guess, what would be the heaviest? Would it be a Gibson, in your opinion? Would it be a Fender? What guitar would you think would be the heaviest? And I think you'd be surprised. Anyway, I'll probably record a video on that and just for giggles show you what that is. Yeah, Fat Philosopher, you would assume that, wouldn't you? That the Les Paul is the heaviest. Watch the video, you'll see. You'll see which one it is. Where did I get the scale? You can get these scales anywhere. You can get these on Amazon. They're made for luggage. They're basically, you put your luggage strap in here and you lift it up. And it tells you how heavy it is. It's about, I don't know, $15 or so. Jeff, that's funny. Can you say that number again, Tony, so I can make sure my wife hears it? No, I can't, because then my wife's going to hear it. My wife knows. Actually, she knows better than I do. Yeah. I'm working on it, guys. I'm working on trying to get that number down. Mark says my Les Paul is like 9 pounds, 10 ounces. Definitely my heaviest. Let me see here. Generally, my Les Pauls or Les Paul style guitars, are any of them in the 8-pound area? Yeah. There are some that are in the 8 pounds. Yeah, there's actually quite a few actually in the 8 pounds. Davis wants to know, how do you store that many guitars? I struggle with my 14. It's I have to get crafty, Davis. I'm getting crafty. I mean, look, there's how many? There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. There's 19 guitars in this room alone. So, there you go. Fat Philosopher says, I bought a 1988 Ibanez S Series last December. My Ibanez bass also has a wicked cool neck. Ibanez makes really good basses, I gotta say. I don't know. I've been eyeballing the Roadstar, the old Roadstar series Ibanez guitars, because I used to have one when I was younger, and I think it would be pretty cool if they re-release that series, but a modern version of the Roadstars. I think they were cool. Like, they weren't all pimped out like some of the Ibanez guitars later with the fancy inlays and all that kind of stuff, the lightning bolt inlays and all the flashy colors. They were kind of subdued, very much like the Strats, but I felt they were pretty solid guitars at the time. So It might be interesting if they would re-release them, but who knows how much they would cost if they would do that now. Jerry F says, on a mounted trem, can you do different tunings without adjusting the trem? You mean like drop D or open G or that kind of thing? You can do drop D with a D tuner without having to adjust things, depending on if your guitar is floating or anchored down to the top. But beyond that, if you're going to do open tunings, I wouldn't recommend doing that on a guitar with a Floyd. Everything's going to be out of whack. It's not worth it. You're better off just putting in a Vega Trim and then doing your tunings that way. Mark says, I'm going to go out on a limb and say your heaviest is a Strat. Well, Mark, I'm not going to give you the answer here today, so you're going to have to watch the video. But let me just see. My heaviest, you think it's a Strat? I'm not going to give you an answer because I'm going to keep you in suspense a little bit longer, but I think you're going to be surprised. That's all I can say for right now. All right? And I don't think I'm going to necessarily show the weights on all the guitars. It would take way longer. I'll just show you the heaviest and the lightest and maybe make you hear the difference between the two. Very different guitars, by the way. So, Jedi Jingle Maker says, sorry for the all caps. I'm really enthusiastic about Swamp Ash for some reason. It's no problem. Presley says the lightest is the Pine Telecaster. Presley, you'll have to see. You'll have to see. I'm glad you're paying attention and you know that there is a Pine Telecaster in the mix here, but you'll have to see. That's all I'm saying. Johnny Guitar says, hey Tony, formerly John D, a lot of buzzing going on about the PRS DGT SE. Have not seen one bad review. I think PRS hit the home run on this guitar. What's your opinion on it? Do you want to try one? I was gassing very badly over the GDT, the Coreline GDT, when it came out. That was one guitar that I definitely had my eye on because it just sounds amazing, and I'm sure it probably feels amazing too. The thing is, I haven't had an opportunity to see the GDT in my local shops. I definitely would love to try it. I would still honestly love to have the core model GDT, but it's very expensive. So the SE would maybe have to do. It's a great looking guitar, man. The specs on paper and from what I've seen, it's sounding very good. I think the GDT model is one of the models where they did something different with the pickups. They, from what I understood, they made the pickups specifically for the GDT model. They didn't just use like generic pickups like they would do on some other models, which I think makes a big difference. So yeah, I'd love to try one. I'm just a little bit worried that if I try one and I really like it, I might just have to buy another one, and then where do I put it? Rexomatic says, do you ever feel bad about not playing some of your guitars? I tend to play the ones kept in cases less than the ones I keep out, and then I realize I haven't played some of them for months. Yeah, that is, I try to do the round robin as much as I could, Rexomatic, where what I do is I'll rotate the guitars that are in back of me here. They're not always the same guitars, and that will, I become lazy and I don't really want to go out and take out the guitars from storage and bring them here and swap them out that way. So I tend to grab one of the guitars that's in the lineup behind me while I'm playing. And so that way I kind of I get to do the cycle. I get to rotate. And I get to appreciate the guitars because yes, there are definitely guitars that are in cases that I don't play nearly as much. And then when I do play them, I'm like, wow, why haven't I played this guitar recently? It's definitely something that I like. And it's a great guitar, and you forget. And it's kind of like Christmas. It gives you the opportunity to just get familiar with the guitar again. You know, reacquaint yourself with the guitar and why it's so good. Definitely. Telecasters can be heavy, definitely. Deja Voodoo, if you've got some Polonia around, I'm sure there are a few super light ones. Under 5 pounds, maybe even. Yeah, Polonia is an awesome wood, man. I'm really enjoying the lighter guitars. I really am. And it's funny because you can get two guitars that are made of the same wood, come from the same company, same place, and the weight will be pretty different. So even Polonia is not always the same weight. I can tell you from experience on that. Cool. Guys, there's 70 people here today. Why am I always getting, like, not everybody's asking questions here. What's going on? Why are you guys lurking? Don't be shy. We don't bite. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed so you can chat. We welcome questions. And I'm falling behind again. Sorry, guys. I'm just scrolling back. Presley says, I rotate. I bring home 4 different guitars from my shop each week. That's one way of doing it. Fat Philosopher says, it was hard for me to find a Lefties S series. Took me like 3 years to locate one I liked. I'm glad I'm not left-handed. I feel bad for you, Fat Philosopher, because I could only imagine how discouraging it is, and how, like, you know, it's like you go into a shop and you look and there's a guitar that you love and you're like, man, I'd buy this guitar on the spot if it was only available in a lefty, and for whatever reason you can't. Yeah, that sucks. I think the left-handers are not getting enough love from the guitar companies. I think we should all protest. We should all strike and not buy any guitars for a while until they start making one-to-ones, you know. The Nye wants to know if I still own the Squier 50s Classic Vibe Telecaster. You did a few comparison videos years ago. I went out and purchased the guitar new and still have it. Yeah, I still have it. Yep, indeed I do. Love that guitar. It's a great guitar. Some of those Squiers, man, I'm telling you, they're awesome. A few like minor upgrades and you're in business. Mark wants to know, how many active pedal boards do you have right now? Different boards for different setups. Really, Mark, I only have I have my main board, which is there. That's the one I normally use. And lately I've been using a lot of multi-effects units. So ever since I got the Fractal, I've been using the Fractal exclusively for rehearsals now for the last few weeks till I got it. I got to make a few videos on that. And that thing is just crazy. It's like, it replaces everything. It replaces all my amps. Like there's like 300 amps or so, 350 amps. I don't even know how many freaking amps there are in there. If you look at the specs on that thing between amps and pedals and everything, it's nuts. So once you're in that realm, it's kind of the pedal board. I mean, it's great for going into the amps when I'm playing live. And I'm playing through the amps, always through the pedal board. But I only have one because I swap out the pedals as I need them. I don't like having multiple boards. I could have multiple boards because I do have the actual boards and I could put them together. But I feel like it's better to hone in on the ones that the pedals that actually work for you, and just swap out one or two depending on the scenario. I think. I'm just looking for something here. Give me a second. Talks amongst yourselves. So they actually have a wiki page where they talk about the effects that are built into the FM9, and I actually never looked at all of it. All right, so if I look at the list here right now, on the FM9, you're looking at how many amps? 303 amps. It's crazy when you think about it. It's freaking nuts. 303 amps. Everything from, the standard Marshalls, the Jump Super Leads, 1987 X's that I've owned in the past. You can get the modded ones. You can get the Basemans, the Tweeds, the Fenders, the deluxe reverbs, the ACs, all the Vox stuff, the Angles, crazy stuff. The Blankenship even, which Dweezil Zappo used to use. The Blankenship leads. You have the Bogners, you have the JCM 800s, you have the JVMs, you got the brown modded ones, the Plexi brown sound ones. It's crazy, man. The Carol Anns, if you guys know Carol Anns, you have the orange amps. It's pretty nuts, man. You have all the even the Dirty Shirleys in there. Imagine the one I have behind me. You have the Dirty Shirley in there. You have the Friedman amps. You have the diesel amps. It's nuts. The list goes on and on and on. It's crazy. And that's just the amps. And if you go into the effects, it's even more. But that's why I'm thinking it's like, you know, it's hard to go back to amps and pedals when you have all of these things at your disposal in one very well made unit. But I do honestly believe that there is a time and a place to use amps, and I still love playing these things. And actually that brings me into a good topic. Andertons, if you guys have seen one of the latest Andertons videos, I caught my attention because what they did was they did a shootout of Marshall style amps. And what they did was they took, I believe there was the Studio Plexi, which I have behind me. There was the mini version of the Dirty Shirley in there as well. There were the Sheriff came out with a new amp. They did that one. Anyways, there was about, I think there was between 5 and 6 amps that they were doing a shootout for. All Marshall inspired amps. It was a great comparison. I enjoyed it immensely, and you can really see how there's a lot of overlap between these amps. I was a little disappointed that they did not include the PRS Hendrix amp, which I think should have been in the shootout. And they stopped at those amps. I mean, there's a lot of other Marshall-inspired amps that should have been in there. The Brunetti Pleximan would have been great, but it's an Italian amp. They probably don't, pay attention to that as much. But one of the things that I noticed is that the Studio Vintage, the one I have behind me, over there, it's covered, but it's there. They didn't do it justice, I have to say, because what they did was they plugged it in, they didn't crank it, and that amp needs to be cranked. So and they even say it in the video, they were barely breaking, it's barely getting hot. So you were not hearing the amp in its full glory. You were hearing it still sounds anemic when it's low. You got to crank it, and if it's not loud, you're not hearing it. And they weren't playing it through an attenuator or anything like that. So I feel like although it sounded good in its own way, you weren't getting the full thing out of it. So take it with a grain of salt when you see these videos, because there are the levels have a big impact in what you're hearing. But definitely the Dirty Shirleys sounded great. The Friedman stuff sounded awesome. The Sheriff sounded amazing as well. I'm not gonna deny it. Great sounding amp. I had my eye on the previous version Sheriff, and I think this one sounds even better. And so any of those amps would be a pleasure to own, definitely. Check it out if you haven't already checked it out. It's really nice. It's a cool shootout. And you know what? I haven't done a shootout of these amps. I should actually do that. I should actually do a shootout. It's just, it takes so much time. But maybe what I'll do is Black Star, which is Marshall inspired. Black Star, Brunetti Pleximan, Marshall Studio Vintage, and Dirty Shirley. And just do a shootout and make you hear the differences between that. I think that would be a cool, interesting video, which I should have done a long time ago, actually. What is the best valve attenuator for you? Good question. I mean, best? For me, the best is the one that is the cheapest. No, I'm just kidding. There's good and there's bad. I think I haven't really had any bad ones. The Webers are very good. If you can get a nice Weber, they make really good ones. Right now I have the Bulgara, which is very inexpensive, but does a very good job as well. I had my questions about that one because it seemed to be too inexpensive. But yeah, it works well, man. It's like $100 or something. So that's what I'm using right now. I actually sold the Weber when I got rid of my other Marshall, which was a Rocket Retro Marshall, which was built by Kevin, a Rocket Retro, which was an amazing plexi style amp, and you'll see that in my early videos. It was so loud. It even had a built-in attenuator. Imagine, had a built-in attenuator in the back of it that I paid extra for him to put in there, which worked well, but it still was loud. So I was still using an attenuator with that. When I sold that amp, I figured I might not need the attenuator anymore, so I sold it. And then later on, figured it would be good to still have one, even though it's not necessarily, as expensive. What do you think? Studio Vintage versus Studio Classic. Both great. I would love to have both of those, by the way. They definitely don't sound the same. So the Studio Vintage is more of that vintage early Marshall. So if you want to have some clean headroom and be able to boost with pedals, I think that's the good choice. If you want to go into JCM 800 territory and you don't necessarily want to boost with pedals, then go Studio Classic. Ideally, both. They're great. They're both great. William says, I got my Bulgara for 50 bones, Black Friday deal. I'm shocked at how good it is. Yeah, it's a very, very, I think it's a great attenuator for the money. I don't see any reason to spend more. Jerry F says, trying to get a Friedman Run 20 combo. No one has them in stock right now. The runs are great. Yeah, the runs are really good. Anything from Friedman is good, man. I'm telling you. He makes really good sounding amps. The thing with Friedman is it's not the tone that you're getting out of the amps is the tone that you want to hear based on what you know about Marshalls from recordings. But if you have an early Marshall and you play it in the room, it's going to make your ears bleed. And it's very difficult to get that sound that we all love from Marshalls in a room for everyday use. You can't. It's like you have to put it in a separate room. You got to crank it, you got to mic it, and you got to play it through monitors unless you want to go deaf. So it's not feasible. So what the beauty of the Friedman stuff is that he created the sound that we're hearing on records that comes through the amplifier, and he's got the beautiful the gain switch, right? He's got a master gain on it, so you can get a really nice sound out of those amps at low volumes right here in the room. And there's enough bottom end, especially in the Dirty Shirley, that it doesn't sound thin when you're playing it low. So it's a great amp, man. And those amps just rock when they're cranked. They're just amazing. So yeah, they're expensive. They're very expensive, but it's one of those things where it's a desert island amp, in my opinion. Once you have one of those amps, you're not even looking at some of the other stuff that's in the store. Like when I go to a regular store these days that don't carry Friedman stuff, what do they usually have? They have a few Fender, the Fender amps. They may have some Mesa amps if you're lucky, not even. Sometimes they have just one. Most of the time I'm not even looking at those amps because my itch is scratched with the amps that I have. So if something comes out, it's got to be really, really good. Like really, really good. Why were those early amps? So they're good question. The reason is because they didn't have a master volume on them. They had just volume. So if you wanted to break up, you got to put them up loud. That's why. So, the Marshall Studio Vintage also doesn't have a master volume on it. So you got to crank it. And let me tell you, cranking it, it's loud, man. It's only 20 watts, so you can only imagine what the 50 watters, the old 50s and the old 100 watters sounded like back in the day. but it's just that harmonic resonance. There's just something about a Marshall. When you hear it, you know it's a Marshall. You know. And even in the Andertons video that I'm referring to, like even the Studio Vintage, which I feel was the less gainy amp, because the way they were playing it, obviously there wasn't much gain. It still sounded great, even at low gain. Edge of breakup sounded great to me. Put a pedal in front of that thing, it's crazy. So that's one of the reasons I bought that one, because the JCM version has the gain built into it. You don't need pedals in front of it, but it's less flexible. This one I can still get some nice cleans out of it, very nice cleans out of it. And if I put a little pedal to boost it, you're in rock and roll heaven, man, without necessarily having to do much. And you have that flexibility. That's exactly it, Mark. They didn't have PAs back in the day, so they wanted louder and louder amps. And Marshall actually made, I think, the 100 water, and I think at one point even 150 water, if I'm not mistaken, for the Who, because they needed the volume, and that's why he made the 4x12. That's why he made the double stacks, the double 412s, because who needs that today? Nobody. If you're playing in a scenario live and you show up with a stacked 2x12 cabinet like that, the sound man's gonna leave. It's great. It's great, but I don't think they're going to be pleased to see that. I brought for one of the gigs that I played, I brought my Brunetti Plexi, man. And honestly, I was playing it through the clean channel most of the night, barely cracking. And the sound man was telling me to keep it lower. I had to get into the sweet spot with that amp. You got to crank it a little bit. It's got a good master volume, but it gets loud. And he was already complaining. So I had to just keep it on the clean channel, boosted with my pedals, and barely cracking, enough to make it worthwhile. Still sounded good, but it would have sounded way, way better if I had the opportunity to crank it. Surferby wants to know how many. So you have 50 guitars. How many amps, digital and tube? The amps that I have are here. I'm not hiding any amps. So these are the ones. So I have the Blackstar. I have the Supersonic Fender there. The Blackstar. The Studio Plexi. Studio Vintage Marshall. The Dirty Shirley from Friedman. And the Brunetti Plexi, man. That's all I got so far. And it's plenty, I think, for now. You always have to throw in the "for now" at the end of it. Okay. So how many, let me ask you guys this. So how many, just give me a number. How many guitars do you guys have? Let's see the number. I want to see if I'm really the craziest guy here tonight. I'm sure there's some of you out there that have more than me. So just give me a number. Just put in whatever, 2, 12, 10, whatever it is. If you want to throw in your acoustics at the same time, take a moment, Sometimes when you have a lot, you have to take a moment to actually figure out how many you actually do have. Peg City says, I gave my Squier custom Telecaster to a luthier here in Winnipeg. In a blind test, I'm sure no one will tell the difference between the Squier and a Fender at this point. It plays and feels so good now. Honestly, I'm glad you brought that up. You're absolutely right. I went to a guitar shop where they had a custom Telecaster from Fender, a lot more expensive, and I played it. And I played the Squier. Beyond the neck, the profile of the neck is not the same. But I tell you something, if you take that neck off, you put in another neck that's very similar to the custom. In a blind test, you're not going to, honestly, the neck and the pickups. Do those two mods on that guitar. And if you really want it to feel the same, and you're not going to be able to tell the difference. Guaranteed. Yeah, back in the day, could you imagine those guys that were playing the multi, like the stadiums where you have stacks of like 6 or 8 4x12 cabinets behind you blaring? Like, I don't even know how these guys don't have to have hearing aids today. All right, so the numbers are coming in. All right, so let's see. I want to see out of all of you that are here today, who's in the lead with guitars. And guys, be honest, all right? Don't give me fake numbers. And it's not really a question of, more guitars does not make you a better player. I'm evidence of that, so don't feel like you got to put a high number in there. And I apologize if I missed over some questions earlier because I was jumping around, all right? If I didn't answer your questions and you want me to answer, just put them back in the chat. So let me start sharing some of the numbers here. Ooh, I see some nice numbers. All right, I'm impressed, guys. So let's start. Rico, 15. Very nice. Antoon, 3. Davis, 14. Orient Quest 3, Jedi Jingle Maker 11, Dan of New Jersey 5. Johnny Guitar says I have 9 guitars and 6 amps. So the numbers they're getting almost at par. We'll ask about amps as a secondary question. Surferby wants to know, have I ever thought about ordering a Kiesel? No, not yet. Dude, I'm telling you, there's too many guitars. They're really nice looking guitars, but I have not thought about ordering one just yet. So Jose says 3, Cool Tunes says 12. Charles says 15. Jeff says 44. Jeff. You little devil, Jeff. Jeff has 44 guitars and he's like lurking here and not posting questions. He's just like absorbing what we're saying. Jeff, man, jump in on the chat. We need to hear from you if you have 44 guitars. Come on. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you for complimenting on the 150th show. Thank you very much. Paul says 1 amp, 10 guitars. Awesome. Krenar, nice to see you, buddy. Kalidas says, I think 12 plus a bass. So Jedi Jingle Maker says 12 plus a bass, 13. All right. Presley says, my personal collection is only 5, but I usually have another 20-ish at the shop. So, but are those your personal collection, Presley, or those guitars that you're building and selling? So I'm talking about a personal collection here. All good names were taken, says 5. Let's see here. Cletus says, people sleep on the Marshall MG for live use unless you're trying to get high gain metal tones. Those MGs sound great. Yeah, and you can also mod them with, there's a few other ways of modding these amplifiers to make them even better if you look them up. If you really want to squeeze all of the juice out of them. Steve says, I got 23. I got a resonator when I went to Nashville. Surfer By says 10 electrics, 5 acoustics, so 15. Cushman 23. Alan 15. Mark 8. William 8. He thinks 18. So maybe there's a few more there. Cletus says the MG does a classic Marshall thing pretty well, loud enough to hang with a PA, help but can be dialed down for the sound guy without losing the tone you're down. Yeah, absolutely. Which is a win-win. You're making the sound guy happy and you're still getting some nice chewy guitar sounds. So Eddie says 8 guitars, 4 amps. Billy Beer says 9. 9, dude. What's the magic number? Is there a magic number, guys? Presley says, wait, we're supposed to play them? Exactly. Yeah, that's what I tell myself sometimes too. Beavis says 14 guitars, 1 bass, 1 banjo, 1 ook, and 2 amps. All right, nice. Jerry says I have too many guitars. Let's leave it at that. He doesn't even want to give a number. I think his wife is watching. Steve says 2 bodies I'm getting parts for. Okay. Jeff says 22. Actually, if you're talking about guitars that are built, that are also being built, then there's a couple more. So it's more. My number just went up by a couple more, but. All right. Charles says, Peg City Pickups planning a future build, trying to decide between your Southern Twang Deluxe and TC204 Telecaster pickups. Cool. Very nice that people are building guitars, and so am I. So, let's see here. Wayne says 120 or so. Wayne, are you fooling with me? 120? Holy mackerel, Wayne. I think you're the champ so far. 120. My hat goes off to you, buddy. Cletus says 12 doesn't seem crazy, but 9 of them are Les Pauls. That does seem a little bit excessive. Jeff E says 44 from the last 22 years. It was a gradual accumulation. So wait a minute. Jeff, are you talking... Okay, are you saying you owned 44? Like, in other words, over your lifetime, they came and went 44? Or do you have 44 in your house at this moment? Because I'm talking about how many guitars can you actually go grab right now and play? That's what I'm talking. I'm not. My 50 here is not 50 like that have come and gone. This is 50 now. If I try and calculate the stuff that's come and gone, holy mackerel, it will take me a while. I should do that one day. Eddie says I've never owned a legit Fender Telecaster or a Gibson. What do you think, guys? Is Eddie missing out? Paul says the magic number is 3, but how to get there is long gone with 10. Yeah, the magic number would be 1, maybe. I don't know. 3 if you're counting. Yeah, I don't know. You can't get. How do you get 3? All right. So personal collection for Presley is 5. 71 SG, 83 Strat, Dad Strat. Nice. 64 Gibson Acoustic, Carvin DC was Craig Kachwisko. I can't even freaking pronounce the name. And my Lakewood Acoustic. The others are shop builds and other stuff for sale. Nice. Nice. Yeah, so I think, and again, William, I'm not sure, William, if okay, so 120 is the magic number here in terms of the winner, but we're not really sure. Wayne says it's 120, but is it 120? He didn't answer my question. Is it 120 throughout the years, or is it 120 now, right now in your house? We need to know, William. Sorry, no, William. Wayne. We need to know, Wayne. Come on, Wayne. We're waiting on your answer here. You're keeping us in suspense. Very cool. I'm glad I'm not the only crazy guy here with way too many guitars. Yeah, Jeff, I totally understand, man. Jeff says, I still own 44 currently. My weakness is that I don't sell any of them. I can't let go. I have the same problem. It's very difficult for me to sell a guitar. I have to really think about it, meditate on it for a while before I can make that decision. I'm not a hoarder, but I just appreciate guitars too much for their own little reasons. Very nice. Thank you for sharing that. One thing I wanted to actually bring up with you guys also is I came across this and I wanted your opinion on it, because I read an article saying that Wolfgang Van Halen is going to be using some of Eddie's guitars And he says Eddie's notable guitars, which I don't know what that means exactly, for his solos on the new Mammoth album that he's going to be coming out with. So what do you guys think about that? I mean, is he just saying that because it's going to stimulate people to buy the music, to listen to it and see if they can tell that Eddie's guitars were being used on the recordings? Like, why do we need to know this? Like, how do we know that he hasn't already done that on the current album? And honestly, I don't think we're going to actually hear the difference because, he doesn't necessarily play like Eddie. So it's an interesting tidbit that he's planning to do that, and it's cool that he's doing that. I think it's his father's guitars. Why not? But will we hear a difference? My guess is no. My guess is we won't. What do you guys think about that? William says, nice, my dream Les Paul is 75 black custom birth year. Yeah. I'm not a big Wolfgang fan either. But I just listened to a couple of his tunes just like that in passing that were actually being played. Like I came across them. I wasn't actually searching for them. Didn't sound bad, but sounded very much like the rest of the music that's out today. I'd love to have a nice 335 or a nice, a Gibson 345, 355. My birth year, that would be pretty cool. Like a 69. I doubt very much I'd be able to find one that is in any way, shape, or form affordable in good condition. Steve says 2 months of not going out to eat and going to a bar to drink could be your new guitar money. Yeah, or if you have smokers, stop smoking. And that could be your new guitar money in no time at all. You know what I'm saying? You can always find ways to build up the guitar pot. Oh, it could be. Yeah, thank you, Rico. So Rico says, I think it was an answer to an interview question. Last week he was asked how the new album is going. He says it's in final mastering process. Okay, so it's coming out. Peg City says, for sure, Tony, I have 7 guitars. I play one of them 95% of the time. There you go. Which is good, and I'm proud of you. I'm proud to hear that you can stick to one guitar. If one guitar suits your needs, man, you're in the zone. You're not being... You're not sabotaging yourself with all this, I need another guitar business to be better. Like me. I'm just crazy that way. Yeah, man. Paul says, Alan has a question. Alan has a question, so I'll answer Alan's question. Alan says, have you ever raised pickup height on hard body-mounted humbuckers? And how do you do it? Think about my 2003 JP6. So you can do it, yeah, you can definitely raise them up by just playing with the screws, loosening the screws. They'll get you up to a certain level. At a certain point, you're going to want to put something underneath because they're going to flop around. So a little piece of foam would do the trick. Just just take the pickup out, put the foam underneath, screw it all back down, and you're in business. That's all you got to do. Pretty simple. Cletus says, that's the truth. I quit smoking over a year ago, and man, the savings is no joke. And Cletus, man, you did your body a favor. Let me tell you. William says, hell yeah, my best friend traded a 79 Artisan. I believe was the year for PRS with a warped neck. Oh, man. I've never let him live that down. Dude, you're cruel, man. You're cruel. Yeah, I would kick myself quite a bit over that one. Definitely. You can put the springs under the legs. That's another tip. Yeah, A lot of people will just take a foam piece, cut a hole in it, put some springs in the foam piece, put it underneath the pickup, and you can do it that way too. There's a few different ways you can do it. You can also put spacers. If you can get like plastic spacers at the hardware store that basically look like just plastic versions of like a washer basically, and you can put it underneath where the screw goes to the body. Just put the little spacer in there. If you find the right one, right size, you can do it that way. You can stack them. Cletus says, I feel you, man. I gained a wife who demanded I quit. I still get the hankering whenever we walk past a designated smoking area. Probably good to have quit, though. Definitely good to have quit, dude. I'm not gonna pester anyone, but definitely you're doing your body a favor. I could only imagine how much money you can blow on smoking cigarettes a year. Thankfully, I never really picked up the habit. Yeah, I smoked cigars and stuff and little, things here and there, but never actually picked up the habit, the smoking habit. I'm happy to say that it's a hell of a habit to kick, man. It's a hell of a habit. Your body's gonna thank you, man. Don't worry about it. So, here's something else I wanted to talk about. Have you guys caught the video? I'm a big fan of Tom Buchvac. I don't know if you guys follow his channel, but he's got a really cool channel where he talks about gear. Well, not talks about gear, but he just talks about things, life, playing. He's a really cool studio musician, and he plays a lot with really cool musicians. He's been posting videos regularly, and he's just like a cool dude, basically a cool dude that gets to that he just likes sharing his opinion on stuff and advice and all that kind of stuff. And he did a really cool rig rundown where he talks about all of his gear and stuff like that, and he has some really nice stuff. I don't know if you guys caught it. And he goes through basically what he likes and what he keeps and why he likes it, and I geek over that kind of stuff so much it's not even funny. But it's great to get somebody else's opinion on stuff that is working as a studio musician. And so part of it is that they talk about how he's a Nashville session musician. He's played a lot of great gear, owned and sold a lot of gear too. But his guitar amps were there's some guitar amps that he probably wouldn't be letting go of, including 3 Marshall 1968 Plexi Super Bass heads with laydown transformers. And he says it's probably the best amp he's owned his entire life. But it has to be a 100 watt version. So you would want to ask yourself, why 100? Why would it be 100 watts? We were talking about earlier how hard it is to get anything cranked these days. Why 100 watts? But basically he explains why the 100 watt version is so much better than the 50 watt version. So I guess you probably laugh over the 20 watt versions that we're using here today. But if you have an opportunity, just check him out. He's a great dude. He's getting really nice recognition. Mark says Tom is cool. He did that cool album with Dean Dello of Stone Temple Pilots called Trip the Witch. Yeah, and he's playing with a whole bunch of people all the time. He's the dude. He's the dude. What else, guys? Do we call it a day, or do we keep it going a little longer? I think I'm gonna maybe just stick around like another 5 minutes or so. It's 11:54. We'll call it a day at exactly 12 o'clock. If you have any questions, definitely ask. If you're gear questions, guitar building questions, amp questions, pedal questions, multi-effects, whatever you guys want to ask, personal questions, whatever I can help you with. Emotional support. addiction support, whatever you guys want. I noticed that Ovation is talking about bringing its those electric acoustic guitar series back that they had. I don't know if any of you ever owned an Ovation guitar. I did own one way back when. You know the ones, you know which ones I'm talking about. The ones with the rounded back that are made of resin, I believe, and you know they usually have a spruce top. People like Alda Miola were playing Ovations and stuff like that back in the day, so I had to buy one. I did buy one and kept it for a while. They're interesting guitars, but they definitely do sound plasticky. Like there's definitely a sound to those Ovation guitars, which is not necessarily a pleasant sound, I would say, for acoustic guitars like the Martins and the Taylors and all these other acoustic guitars, in my opinion, sound way, way better. But there was just that sound. There was a period in time where a lot of people were playing those Ovations, even live. And so anyways, they're talking about, the reason I bring this up, they're talking about bringing them back as a non-cutaway mid-depth model, which are basically based on the 80s and the 90s models that they had. They're kind of revamping them. I don't think they're going to be that different. Maybe just finishes on them will be different. I don't think there's much that they're going to change. But yeah, it's one of those things where if you own a nice acoustic guitar, like a real acoustic guitar, all wood, it's hard to pick up an Ovation and like it. But yeah, back in the day, they were quite popular. I kept mine for a while and I sold it. I don't know if you guys have ever had the option of trying one of those ones. Yeah, Cletus, you know, that's right. It's you can quit. I know a lot of people that have quit. The question is, how long are you going to quit for? You know, that's the thing, is staying on the wagon kind of thing. It's hard, man. It's probably one of the hardest things. I really don't I don't envy anybody that's trying to quit smoking. They should drop the plastic back thing. I think that turns a lot of people away from them. Yeah, William, I think so too. Like who's looking for that sound today? I don't know. Unless you're like me and you just want to kind of reminisce what you've had back in the day and maybe give it another shot or something like that. But I don't think I'd go back to an Ovation. All the good names were taken. Says I had a handful of Ovations along the way. Probably not get another one. Yeah. They always sound like, yeah, they don't sound, I don't find that they sound good unplugged. And even plugged in, they sound plasticky, like you can tell. You can listen to a guitar and probably guess that it's an Ovation if you hear it without looking. Surferby says those Ovations were big in the late 70s into the 80s. I tried them, they were fine. Okay, I tried them too. I don't know, they weren't bad. They just had that Ovation sound. If you like it, you like it. If you don't. Paul says I prepaid for an Ovation and got one from the first day's run. I used for 10 years and sold it. And in the end, I would rather play the same style but on a semi. Yeah. Good for you, Mark. Mark says, I stopped smoking in 2006, never went back. Hey, look, we all have our addictions, right? For me, it's guitars, and I think probably eating. I have a hard time controlling myself with those two things. Some of you have smoking, some of you have drinking, some of you have other things. We're all damaged goods at the end of the day. You know, it's just a question of helping each other get through. So, you know, at the end of the day, you know, just do whatever you think is right, but keep in mind, as you get older, your body needs some sympathy from you, man. Smoking is definitely not going to help. Drinking either, for that matter. But I'm not here to preach. Orient Quest says a Luther friend of mine said that the song More Than Words killed the Ovation market when it hit the charts. Really? Why? Why is that? Mark says guitars is my addiction now. Gear videos too. Me too. Me too, Mark. Me too. Definitely. Jean-Pierre says I will eventually stop smoking in a distant future. Yeah, man. I think we've had that discussion before, Jean-Pierre. A few times. Listen to your heart, buddy. All right, guys. We're officially at 1:59 and 56 seconds. I hate to be this punctual, but I think we're going to wrap it up for today. Guys, I really appreciate you guys tremendously. Again, thank you for the words of support during the difficult time with the dog. And I think she appreciates you guys as well. Here, I'll just put a picture up. just to for old time's sake, for those of you that missed the dog cam. There she is sleeping like a baby in her own, her favorite spot, which was right near the door. And her little, there was a little stool there, which she wasn't supposed to sit on, by the way, or sleep on. But whenever we would leave, she would just get in there and sleep there because it was sunny and she was waiting for us to come back by the door. You know, she wanted to be the first to greet us. So I'll leave you with that picture, a little memory of Maya, and wish you guys well, man. I hope you guys have a great week. We will be back next Sunday, and we'll have more stuff to talk about without a doubt. Please stay tuned to the video review on this guitar. There's also another guitar that I'm going to be reviewing, and I'm hopefully going to get a chance to do that this week as well. It's coming. Patience. The guitar wait list will be another video, and probably definitely the amps that I have in my behind me here. So cheers to you guys. Have a great week. Enjoy your time with your family, your guitars, your friends, your four-legged creatures that you live with and love. And we'll definitely talk some more very, very shortly. Peace out, guys. Have an excellent week and take care of yourselves. We'll see you soon.